wanted to put out a quick how to make your own sling video. This isn't going to be for everyone, like especially if you don't mind, if you don't have that many rifles, or you like what you've got and you've already spent the money, whatever. But I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and it's been going really well. I really enjoy it. I can make what I want for a specific need or weapon, whatever, and it's significantly cheaper than just trying a bunch of different slings and figuring out what you like or don't like. There's no like magic proprietary materials out there, guys. You're paying for a company's labor. Even if you order from me, I just keep things cheaper because it's like a side gig, and I know, you know, I've played with the math. I've actually got a little sample knocked up over here. Don't knock her up. Anyway, but that's like all of this stuff that these companies are using, you have access to. You can buy all this stuff yourself and do it yourself. So this isn't going to be like 100% accurate, but I kind of drawn up a little bit of a comparison here when you're buying a sling, depending on who you're getting it from, like if it's a sale or whatever, what features it has, it's padded or comes with or without QDs, whatever. But this is kind of a general like cost ratio. You're probably looking at, you know, $65 to $100 for a quality sling with QDs and shipping, depending on if you buy everything from one manufacturer or multiple, whatever. If you make one, you're going to be looking at closer to $40 to $70. And again, this is dependent. You can see here. So, do you want a padded sling? Like I've got a couple of the defense mechanisms sling pads. They're really great. And they only cost like $30, and they go on any of the 1-inch slings that I make. Some slings I have 2 QDs, some slings I don't have any. But this right here, for the nylon hardware shipping you need, or would spend, like this is on Rocky Woods Fabrics. That's one of the companies I use supply-wise. That is an exact cost. I just put that in my cart. That is for 3 yards of nylon, 3 triglides, and one of these guys. And I use this as an example because it's one of the more expensive options. Now, again, I said that isn't 100% accurate. You know, this, I haven't accounted for thread and needles and that cost. I haven't accounted for where you're getting it from, what type of nylon or color or size you're using. There's a lot of different options out there. So, but it's worth looking into, I think, especially if you're going to be supplying a lot of, you know, maybe your family with a rifle sling, or for instance, now 2023, things are going to be getting more expensive. Supply is going to be harder to get. You know, maybe you don't want to be stuck waiting around. You want to be able to supply yourself. So if you want to make your own sling, there's some things you got to consider, things you got to figure out. Obviously, what color and size you want. I typically stick with 1-inch mil-spec 55-301 nylon webbing. I like 1-inch. It's not super wide. It's not super thin. It does, you know, it's got, I've talked about it a little bit in my how to sew video, so you can look at that, but that's mostly what I stick with. I prefer a lower profile sling. I try to avoid as much fluff and additional hardware or catch and snag hazards as I possibly can. So that's typically what I stick with. There's most sling manufacturers out there. There's 2 kind of general designs, I guess you could say. 2-piece slings, which is 2 pieces of nylon joined together by some type of hardware. Faro and Sierra tack slings are a good example of that. This is my 2-point sling that I use on my carbine. You can see I got one piece that includes my front end, the loop and adjustment, and then it's just put through this loop block, and that's the tail end. Another design is like the one piece Proctor slings are a really good example of this, which are fantastic, by the way. Still have a couple of his lying around, but that's exactly what it sounds like. It's just one piece of nylon with the adjuster sewn on there. So depending on how you want to do that, it depends a little bit on how you like your adjustment direction to go. Two pieces typically, if you're sliding towards the muzzle, it's getting tighter, and you're sliding away from the muzzle, it gets looser. One pieces are typically the opposite, unless you like mount it backwards or whatever. And that's not a set rule, that's just generally speaking, and that's how I typically run them. The only other way I do it, I do have a one piece on my bolt gun that is reversed, just because of the way I run it, you know. So how you're gonna sew it, if you have a sewing machine, you can give it a shot. My house, we've got a Singer heavy duty something or other. It's kind of finicky. With these materials and the thread, it's like I have to have specific settings, and it's still kind of finicky. So some of the time I'll just do them by hand anyway, just because I don't want to deal with it. Or my wife's got her stuff set up, and I don't want to pull out all the pink thread and stuff. So and then I will always use at least 3 yards of nylon. That allows for room for error, a lot of kind of size and mounting solution adjustment. When I make them for somebody, that's the length I use. And I do that because I don't know your body size, I don't know what kind of weapon you're putting it on, I don't know what sort of mounting solution you're using, or where you're mounting it on the rifle. Like, I'm gonna leave that up to you. And 3 yards is a little bit of overkill, but you know, scissors and a lighter are, you know, that's an easy solution. So okay, the next important thing you got to figure out is what sort of glider or adjustment hardware you want to use. Obviously you're going to need triglides, that goes without saying. Again, I use a minimum of 3, and these loop locks, you'll want those if you're doing a 2-piece, or if you've got like a really long gun or something and you're doing a 1-piece, it's kind of nice to sew that on there to help secure that big adjustment loop. But the main stuff you're looking for is the tool you're using to adjust the sling, tension or loosen it up. These guys are really popular. Onward Research and Faro Slings use these. They're not my preference, just because they're metal, they're heavier, and they're more expensive, but they are really heavy duty. These little ladder lock deals, ESD uses these. These are cool, a lot of different mounting options there, and they do have that little hole where you can put like a zipper tab or like paracord, something to kind of grab onto if you don't want to just grab. It's a little small to grab onto. These are my favorites. I can't remember I know where I get them, but they're just like an extra wide mouth triglide. The older Proctor slings were using this or something similar to it. I typically use this like naked, just in this configuration. I can just grab it and move it, or I will sew a nylon loop on there. I like the loop because it's lightweight. I can grab it or just stick a finger in there, or I can still just grab this, and if this breaks, I'm still good to go. So okay, so we'll do a little follow along. I've got 2.5 yards of multicam 1-inch 55-301 nylon. I got this extra wide mouth triglide. Going to be doing a 1-piece for a teammate, and And the first thing I'm gonna do with one hand, I'm gonna use that middle point of contact. One pieces are nice because this is really all you have to sew. It's just this one part. Basically get something like that. I'm gonna close that off so I don't have that melted edge exposed. So just fold it on itself. And that's what I'm gonna be sewing together. I'm gonna tighten that up. Maybe put some little alligator clips on it just to help crimp the nylon a little bit, make it easier. That's what I'm gonna be sewing. There we go. I'll probably leave this for a few minutes and then scooch these down and do my first stitch across here as tight as I can get to the hardware. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but that melted edge is in between the folded layers of the nylon, and that is where I'm putting my first stitch, not through this edge but behind it, and that's where my knot's gonna go. And then from here I'm gonna start that first tight stitch along that bar. Okay, there's the first stitch. That is 3 passes close to the bar. I'm just going to repeat that down here towards the bottom. Done the same thing, 3 passes at the bottom. I've got my loop here. I'm going to thread through and close this off. If you haven't seen the sewing video, again, I just put the needle through that loop I made. I'm going to take the needle through that fold all the way out to this side, make another loop, shoot it back through, and do that twice on each side. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to start with the front end on a one-piece sling. I'm just going to loop the Sling QD up here through the tail. Now I'll take the tail end, probably got twisted up here for sure doing this one-handed. This is fun. Okay, and loop this through. Okay, so real quick, this is my 12.5-inch gun. I mount all the way out front, all the way out back. The 2-piece sling. This is where I've got my adjustment sized, right about to the safety selector. You don't want to overdo it with how much adjustment you give yourself, because that's just making this, your loop and double layer, bigger. You're giving yourself a larger, more snag hazard, more tanglies, more problemos. So when I was first doing this, I was like, oh yeah, I want to be able to have so much room, and I want to be able to have it like super tight, and I had it like all the way out here or something. And I was at a low light centrifuge class with Brian, and he used my gun for a demo, and I could tell he was not impressed. He gave me the bruh look. So figuring things out, on this particular gun anyway, that's where I've got it sized. So this is the one we just made. Put this on my 12.5-inch gun. Same mounting points all the way to the rear, all the way to the front. You can see I got quite a bit of extra on the tail end, using that 2.5 yards. Again, I don't know what your body type or use case is, but I've sized this without cutting anything away for this gun and my body. Right here, I've got the tensioner or glider here. I can reach it easily enough right here. I don't want to go any further than this point. Right now, I've got enough space to where it's tight on my body, but if I had kit on, it wouldn't be a problem. And then I've got all this to still open up and use if I need it.